Theodore's lips pressed against Eli's in front of the entire auditorium packed with investors, journalists, and employees. The flashbulbs popped like gunfire as the CEO of Vanguard Tech, the man who had built a billion-dollar empire on charm and precision, publicly claimed the one person he was never supposed to love. Chaos erupted instantly. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by the frantic clicking of cameras and the low murmur of voices turning into a roar. Theodore pulled back slowly, his hand still cupping Eli's face, his blue eyes steady despite the storm breaking around them. Eli stood frozen, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst through his chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Their relationship had been a carefully guarded secret for 2 years, stolen moments in hotel rooms, whispered conversations in the back of limousines, and quiet weekends at Theodore's private cabin in the Adirondacks. Now, in one bold move during what was meant to be a standard quarterly earnings call, Theodore had blown it all open. Security rushed forward as reporters surged toward the stage. "Mr. Harrington, is this a joke?" One shouted. "Are you saying you're gay?" Another yelled. Theodore turned to the microphone, his voice calm but firm. "No joke. I've spent my life building this company and playing the role the world expected. But Eli is the only person who has ever seen the real me. The one behind the boardrooms and the magazine covers." Eli's mind raced. He was just 28, a mid-level assistant who had started as an intern 3 years ago. Theodore Harrington, 42, was the face of success, tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that closed million-dollar deals and graced the covers of Forbes. That smile had always been different with Eli. Softer, genuine, reaching his eyes in a way that made Eli feel seen for the first time. But now, the world was watching, and Eli felt exposed, vulnerable in a way that made his stomach twist. As they were ushered off the stage into a waiting SUV, Theodore squeezed Eli's hand. "I'm sorry for springing it on you like that," he said quietly. "But I couldn't do the speech they wanted. I couldn't stand up there and pretend anymore." Eli looked at him, the man he had fallen for despite every warning his own fears had given him. "Theo, your board is going to lose it. The stock price. Your family." Theodore's jaw tightened. "Let them. I've sacrificed enough." The drive to Theodore's penthouse in Manhattan was tense. News alerts were already blowing up Eli's phone. Tech mogul Theodore Harrington kisses male assistant at earnings call. Comes out as gay? The headlines were merciless. When they arrived, Theodore's phone rang nonstop. His sister, his business partner, even his ex-wife from a marriage of convenience years ago. Eli paced the living room, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the glittering city that now felt hostile. This was the beginning of the end or the start of something real. Eli wasn't sure which. He had always struggled with who he was, growing up in a conservative Midwest family that still sent him church pamphlets every holiday. Moving to New York had been his escape, but the fear followed. Loving Theodore had been both the most terrifying and beautiful thing in his life. Now, with the secret out, Eli wondered if he had the strength to stand in the spotlight beside a man the world thought they owned. Theodore poured them both a drink, his movements precise as always. "Whatever happens next, I need you to know this wasn't just for me. It was for us. I want a life where I don't have to hide the only person who makes me smile like this." Eli took the glass, their fingers brushing. In that touch, he felt the weight of what was coming: the press, the lawsuits perhaps, the judgment. But also the possibility of freedom. Theodore's phone lit up again with his mother's number from California. Eli watched as Theodore stared at it, the confident CEO suddenly looking like a man carrying years of unspoken pain. For the first time, Eli realized how deep the cracks in Theodore's perfect life really ran. The nights stretched on with quiet conversations and shared silences, the kind that had always bonded them. But this time, the stakes were higher than either had imagined. By morning, the fallout had begun in earnest. Vanguard Tech stock had dropped 12% before the markets even opened, and the board demanded an emergency meeting. Theodore arrived at the sleek glass tower on Fifth Avenue with Eli by his side, their hands brushing in the elevator but never quite holding. The conference room felt like a battlefield. Suits and stern faces lined the long table, eyes flicking between the two men with a mix of disbelief and calculation. "This is a PR nightmare," the CFO snapped. "Our biggest clients are conservative. Deals are already stalling." Theodore stood tall, his voice steady. "I'm not apologizing for who I am. Vanguard has always been about innovation. Maybe it's time we innovated in how we treat our people too." Eli sat quietly, feeling every stare like a weight on his shoulders. He had never wanted to be the reason Theodore's empire shook. As the meeting dragged on, accusations flew about judgment lapses, about hidden agendas. One director even suggested Eli had manipulated the situation for personal gain. The words stung, but Theodore shut them down instantly, his protective tone sending a quiet thrill through Eli despite the tension. Later, in Theodore's office overlooking the Hudson, they finally talked alone. "I should resign," Eli said, voice cracking. "This is your company. Your life." Theodore crossed the room in 2 strides, cupping Eli's face the way he had on stage. "You are my life. The only part that's real." Their conversation spilled into memories, the first time they met at an internship fair, the late nights working on projects that turned into something more, the fear that kept them silent. Eli confessed how he had buried his feelings for months, convinced a man like Theodore could never choose someone ordinary like him. Theodore admitted the closet had been his prison since college, pushed by a father who valued legacy over truth. The afternoon brought more calls. Eli's phone buzzed with texts from his parents in Ohio. "We saw the news. Are you okay? Is this real?" Their concern was genuine but laced with the same discomfort he had grown up with. Theodore's mother was less gentle. "You've destroyed everything we built," she said over speakerphone. "What about your sister? The family name?" Theodore hung up, shoulders slumping for the first time. Eli pulled him into an embrace, feeling the CEO's usual strength give way to raw vulnerability. "I'm here," Eli whispered. "No matter what." By evening, paparazzi camped outside the building. They slipped out through a service exit, driving north to Theodore's cabin for breathing room. The winding roads gave them space to process. Theodore talked about the pressure to marry for alliances, the women he dated publicly to keep the board happy. Eli shared stories of hiding who he was in high school, the loneliness that followed him to the city. As they sat by the fireplace that night, the conversation turned hopeful. "We can rebuild this," Theodore said. "Stronger. Together." Eli believed him, but the knot in his stomach warned that the world wouldn't let them off so easily. The weekend passed in quiet intimacy, walks in the woods, shared meals, honest talks about the future. Yet Eli couldn't shake the feeling that their love was now a public battleground, and he wasn't sure if either of them was truly ready for the fight ahead. The return to New York brought fresh storms. Board members leaked private emails suggesting Theodore's leadership was compromised. Investors pulled out of a major merger. Eli tried to stay professional at the office, but whispers followed him in the hallways. "Is that the guy?" colleagues muttered. One afternoon, an old college friend of Theodore's, now a rival executive, cornered Eli in the lobby. "You know he's using you, right? This is just damage control." The words planted seeds of doubt that bloomed overnight. At home, Eli confronted Theodore. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I was just convenient." Theodore's eyes flashed with hurt. "After everything, you think that?" Their argument escalated, voices rising in the penthouse until tears replaced anger. Eli admitted his fear of being seen as the reason for Theodore's downfall. Theodore confessed the guilt he carried for dragging Eli into the spotlight. They reconciled slowly, hands intertwined on the couch, but the misunderstanding lingered like smoke. Family pressure mounted from both sides. Eli's parents flew in unexpectedly, their faces tight with worry. "We love you," his mother said over dinner. "But this life, the media, is it worth it?" Theodore sat quietly, offering them respect, but the tension was palpable. Later, Theodore's sister arrived from California, demanding he step down to save the family reputation. "You've always been the golden boy," she said bitterly. "Now look at us." Eli watched Theodore absorb the blows, his posture straight but his eyes tired. Amid the chaos, small moments of connection kept them grounded. A late-night walk through Central Park where Theodore's smile returned, genuine and only for Eli. A shared decision to attend a small support group for LGBTQ executives, where Theodore spoke openly for the first time about his journey. Eli felt pride swell in his chest, seeing the man he loved choose truth over comfort. Yet the internal conflicts deepened. Eli questioned his own worth. Was he strong enough to stand beside a public figure? Theodore grappled with the loss of control, the empire he had sacrificed pieces of. As weeks turned into a month, the couple faced a choice: retreat into privacy or fight for the life they wanted. The decision came during a quiet evening when Theodore proposed a simple weekend away. "No phones, no press. Just us figuring this out," he said. Eli agreed, but the road ahead felt longer than either expected, paved with more tests of trust and resilience. Betrayal arrived without warning. A trusted board member, someone Theodore had mentored for years, sold details of their private life to a tabloid. Photos from the cabin weekends surfaced, nothing explicit, but intimate enough to fuel headlines about the CEO's secret boyfriend. The company's stock plunged again. Clients canceled contracts citing brand risk. Theodore stood in his office, staring at the article, fists clenched. "I trusted him," he whispered. Eli felt the pain like his own, remembering how he had once warned Theodore about office politics. The misunderstanding that followed nearly broke them. Eli, overwhelmed by guilt, suggested they pause. "Maybe if I step back, the pressure eases." Theodore interpreted it as rejection. "After I risked everything?" Their fight was raw, accusations flying about who sacrificed more. Eli stormed out, spending the night at a friend's apartment, replaying every doubt. By morning, regret hit hard. He returned to find Theodore pacing, eyes red from lack of sleep. "I can't lose you," Theodore said simply. They talked for hours, unpacking the betrayal's impact on their trust. The rival executive who had planted seeds earlier now seemed connected to the leak. Theodore chose not to retaliate legally yet, focusing instead on protecting Eli. Family reactions intensified the crisis. Eli's father called, voice strained. "Son, this is tearing you apart. Come home." Theodore's mother threatened to disown him publicly unless he fixed the situation. The couple attended a family therapy session together, navigating years of unspoken expectations. Eli saw Theodore's vulnerability in a new light. The boy who had hidden his truth to please a demanding father, now fighting to be free. Slowly, they rebuilt. Theodore implemented new company policies on inclusion, turning the scandal into a platform for change. Eli supported him at public events, standing tall despite the stares. The betrayal forced growth. They learned to communicate openly, to choose each other daily. Yet the emotional toll showed in quiet moments, Theodore's rare silences, Eli's anxious pacing. A weekend in the Hamptons helped heal them. Walks on the beach where Theodore's smile returned fully. "You're worth every storm," he told Eli. As they returned stronger, the company began to stabilize, but new challenges loomed, testing if their love could withstand the ultimate sacrifice. The crisis peaked when the board voted to remove Theodore as CEO unless he distanced himself from Eli. "It's business," the chairman said coldly. Theodore refused, walking out of the meeting with his resignation letter ready. Eli watched in horror as the man he loved gave up the empire he had built from nothing. "You can't do this for me," Eli protested that night. Theodore's response was quiet but firm. "I already did. The company was never the dream. You are." The sacrifice brought financial strain and public scrutiny. Reporters camped outside their building. Old friends distanced themselves. Eli's internal battle raged, guilt over costing Theodore everything mixed with pride in his courage. They moved temporarily to a quieter apartment upstate, where conversations turned deep. Theodore spoke of his childhood dreams beyond boardrooms, of wanting a life with purpose. Eli shared his own growth, realizing his strength in standing beside the man he loved. Misunderstandings arose again when Eli suggested Theodore fight the board legally. "I don't want to drag you through more pain," Theodore replied. Their honest talks healed old wounds, revealing how far they had come. A turning point arrived during a visit from Theodore's sister. She apologized, admitting her fear had blinded her. "You look happier than I've ever seen you," she said, hugging Eli. The moment opened doors to reconciliation with family. Eli's parents sent a card of support, small but meaningful. As weeks passed, Theodore started consulting work, helping smaller LGBTQ-owned tech firms. Eli took on more responsibility at a new startup, their roles shifting but their bond deepening. The emotional awakening was profound. Theodore learned vulnerability was not weakness. Eli discovered his voice in advocating for others. Yet the pressure tested them daily. One evening, facing media outside a restaurant, Theodore pulled Eli close publicly. "Let them see," he said. The act symbolized their choice to live openly. The sacrifice had cost the empire, but it bought them freedom and a future built on truth. Months later, Vanguard Tech recovered under new leadership, but Theodore's new venture, a foundation supporting LGBTQ entrepreneurs, thrived beyond expectations. Eli stood beside him at the launch event, no longer hiding. The journey had transformed them both. Theodore's smile, once reserved for stolen moments, now shone freely in public, always brightest when aimed at Eli. They traveled to California for a family reunion, where acceptance slowly bloomed. Walks on the beach reminded them of simpler joys, conversations about the future replacing old fears. Eli reflected on the growth, from the terrified assistant on that stage to a confident partner building a shared life. Theodore admitted the scandal had been his liberation, forcing him to choose love over legacy. Their relationship faced everyday challenges, balancing careers, navigating public life, but each decision strengthened them. Friends from the support group became family, proving community could heal what society tried to break. As they sat on their balcony one evening watching the city lights, Theodore turned to Eli. "Thank you for standing with me through it all." Eli smiled back, the same genuine smile they now shared openly. The path had been paved with pain, betrayal, and hard choices, but the result was a love that felt unbreakable. Theodore's empire had crumbled, yet something far greater rose in its place: authenticity, purpose, and a partnership that inspired others. In the quiet moments, they both knew the journey was worth every step. True or false? Sacrificing everything you built for authentic love is always the right choice when the world demands you hide who you are.